Mr. Holder.
And I'd like to thank our guests for attending this morning. I want to add my comments that I know we all feel around this table, the empathy for the 2,600 employees and their families, and frankly, the spin-off jobs that go outside of that as well. I think we all appreciate that. In my own city, that has certainly happened, and anytime any company fails, it isn't just the company, obviously. It's clearly the employees and then the spin-off work. And it isn't just the union jobs. It's the management jobs and the non-management jobs and all the others that are impacted by feeder organizations in those communities. So your hearts can't not go out for those people, and I want to make that very clear. This is an interesting discussion. Interesting from the standpoint of what I want to call, I'm not sure if I want to call it mixed messages, but I'm a little confused. Because, Mr. Hiscock, you made a comment earlier in some of your testimony. You said, just unlock the door and turn on the lights. And you indicated this is a turnkey operation. And to the extent that equipment, presuming it's all in repair and order, you indicated that within 72 hours it could be operational again. And as a person with some business background, if it were only that easy to do it just that way, certainly I'm not talking about the technical aspect of unlocking the door, but there is the other aspect, and I'm because the other side of it, there's the part where it's important that we keep employees working. It's important that a company to do that needs to make money to do that. And I think one of you indicated, and I apologize who said this. Oh, pardon me, Mr. Hiscock, you said it again. They were never profitable. I think that's what you indicated. And I guess when I look at the investment that they made, and I have to believe that Avios as a company initially acted in good faith to try to create a profitable organization. If it's not profitable, you can't sustain yourself. And in business, just like a budget, we all understand that. So where I'm trying to take this is, could you presume that any company that would invest in this in the assets of this organization with the labor force that's there and the markets that are there could be profitable? And how long do you think it would take to get to profitability?
Oh, but you're way outside of my area of expertise in terms of corporate profitability, but I believe the elements are there to make a successful company.
I'm sorry, say that. I apologize.
I believe the elements are all there to make a successful company.
So
I think that a lot of where this needs to go is this needs to be a properly managed and run company. That's been our opinion for quite some time, simply with the dealing we've had with the management group that has been in place.
Well, Mr. Didushak, you indicated that the union had ideas as to how Avios could diversify its business when it was operational. Could you clarify, help us understand what those, what some of those ideas could have been?
Well, one of the ideas we had was work rule changes that we could have implemented at the time. But prior to doing something like that, you have to understand the expenses that Avios had. Because when we spoke to Avios management prior to them filing for CCAA, they had advised us that they were paying exorbitant amounts of rent to Air Canada in regards to the facilities they were using. The number given to me in Winnipeg was $380,000 a month for the hangar. So you can do the math on what $380,000 a month would be, which would precipitate the $95 an hour for the labor costs that Avios was charging back to Air Canada. If you take that cost away, or at least minimize the cost to a reasonableness, then you could go out and actually find companies out there that would be willing to bring work in at a lesser rate. They've always told us, Air Canada told us when Air Canada had ACTS, and Avios has told us if they could get their rates down to $60 an hour, they could attract third-party business.
So to be candid, if I might, and because I appreciate learning through you, did they ever talk about the cost of labor as one of their issues that they had to deal with you?
Every company talks about the cost of labor as being an issue. The cost of labor was not...
Well, you indicated there was another issue too. You talked about hangar costs as well.
Hangar costs and their expenses was exorbitant. One of the things I noticed with Avios when they purchased their ACTS from Air Canada was the money flow that they had for implementation of new purchasing processes, new computer programs, lean management programs that they launched. The money that was flowing out of there was quite substantial.
Well, if I'm correct, the monies that Avios received were from investors who would have been reasonably sophisticated, I would have thought, larger financial institutions. Certainly, we heard that in some testimony from Mr. Ravanescu last week. Again, I come back to my business background, I have bought and sold companies, but I do that with eyes wide open. And it strikes me that Avios would have done that same thing. So it's interesting on their way out that they make these comments to you. I'm just surprised that would never have been considered. In fact, I would find that highly irregular for any business, especially investor-based business that would go into that kind of enterprise without having eyes wide open. So it strikes me clearly from my experience, and these people do not seem like unsophisticated investors, that's how they would have done it. So can I ask a question then about your current employee group now, please? 2,600 employees. Was that the number of employees when Avios bought that division? Was that the exact number at the time?
No.
How many employees were they at the time?
I know in Winnipeg, and I can only speak for Winnipeg again because I don't know how.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a global, if anybody.
How it was reduced nationally. I'll let Brother Poirier talk about.
Mr. Poirier, do you know
Quebec, about Quebec?
Okay,
in Winnipeg, we started at over 600 employees within the maintenance base when ACTS existed, when it was sold to Avios. We were down to 330 unionized mechanics when they went bankrupt. Okay. So we lost half our workforce in just a matter of a couple of years of Avios purchasing.
So can I ask you?
I have to stop. I'll ask Mr. Poirier just to complete the answer, and then we have to move on.
Thank you.
Mr. Poirier?
Écoutez, moi j'aime ça faire des images qui sont claires pour tout le monde. Qu'est-ce que mon collègue de Winnipeg dit, c'est vrai. Le nombre de personnes présentement a diminué avec les années. Quand vous parlez de viabilité, là, en 2003, là, Air Canada, CTS, appelez-le comme vous voulez, la maintenance d'Air Canada, très viable. En 2007, lors de la vente, très viable, ils vendent ça au-dessus de 700 millions. Les employés, là, ils n'ont pas eu d'augmentation de salaire depuis 2003. Les bénéfices n'ont pas augmenté. La productivité a encore plus augmenté parce qu'ils ont diminué les employés. Fait que venez me dire aujourd'hui que cette compagnie-là n'est pas viable. Moi, je vous dirais plus que présentement, il y a du monde qui se sont remplis les poches, qui sont partis. Il y a des gestionnaires. Écoutez, la structure de gestion d'Avios, c'était incroyable, là. Il y avait du monde dans ce département-là. Je pense qu'il y avait plus de management qu'il y avait d'employés sur le plancher maintenant. Là. Fait que, écoutez, là, oui, c'est une compagnie viable. Oui, on a fait des sacrifices. Puis aujourd'hui, ces sacrifices-là, c'est les employés qui écopent encore une fois. Ils sont dans la rue pendant qu'il y a du monde qui sont partis peut-être avec des valises pleines d'argent. Fait que, viabilité, oui, on est une compagnie viable. Il n'y a personne qui va me faire croire d'autre chose que ça.
Thank you, and that completes the first round. I'm going to open the floor up for another round of 5 minutes, so I'll start with Mr. Nichols.
Well, what I'm going to take away from this meeting today is an idea of what the Conservative strategy for jobs is. That's learn to speak Spanish or Chinese, buy a plane ticket and say adios. How can a Canadian worker compete with $3 an hour or $2 an hour, or however much they pay in Salvador or China? It takes government support to support our industry. We look at EMD. It went to the States. It had U.S. government support. Those jobs, the pay that they were getting in Canada got cut in half. Now, if our government had been willing to support EMD, maybe we would have been able to keep those jobs here. I don't see this government supporting any workers in Canada. And frankly, from the more evidence that I see from this government, I see that it's interested in union busting, clearly. You know, this is the largest single loss in the aerospace industry since the demise of the Avro Arrow. And just coincidentally, the replica of the Avro Arrow is being turfed out of a museum right now. It doesn't seem to me that the Conservatives want an industrial strategy at all. These people that were employed with Avios, they spent money in their communities, they paid their taxes, they raised their kids, they raised their family, and they built local economies. Those are the people that build local economies, not a bunch of managers that put their money offshore, that don't even live on Canadian soil. If we look at innovation You guys are the innovators. You're the practical side of the ideas application. You're doing the work on the ground. The government's job is to prepare the playing field for you guys, and we've seen that they've clearly failed at doing that. If you look at even the World Economic Forum, we see Canada's ranking dropping every year in terms of their competitiveness with regards to innovation. And you guys are the innovators, and so now we see that dropping further. Now, the government is trying to roll out a plan regarding innovation, but as far as I'm concerned, it's too little too late. They haven't been looking at the indicators, and I'm not sure if their plan is going to work, especially with the Minister of Finance busy attacking the Premier of Ontario. You got to the key there. You said mismanagement. Well, this government's being mismanaged. You talked about the top managers screwing over the people on the bottom. Well, that's what this government's doing. So, don't you agree with that? Don't you agree that this is clearly an exercise in union busting, and that if it doesn't stop today, if we don't stop this union busting, it's just going to continue in each sector of the country, and each unionized workers are going to be screwed over by this government.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that the language of the honourable member is very parliamentary with respect to the government or government members. I think that should be withdrawn. And something a little more parliamentary used instead.
Well, Mr. Chair, the chair had no
Mr.
problem.
Nichols on the same point of order.
Mr. Chair, you had no problem last week with the word shafted, which was used by the member from Winnipeg North, where he said, I believe, shafted about 12 times. I believe screwed over is the equivalent to shafted. I believe that screwed over or shafted are basically synonyms. If you looked in a thesaurus, you'd see that screwed over is basically the same meaning.
I am just going, Mr. Holder, on the same point of order.
Chair, you know, it's interesting. I'm, I believe, the newest member to this committee, and I would say that what I've been blessed with in prior committees that I've sat on is that when we can raise the level of debate and dialogue amongst our colleagues, so I just encourage my colleague opposite to keep the level of parliamentary discourse at the highest level that I know he can do.
I'm going to rule that it's not a point of order, but I do ask all members. We are seen as leaders of our country, and I think some of our language at times is inappropriate, but choose your words carefully. Mr. Nichols asked a question, and I'll ask for a response, please, from whoever wants to take it.
I'm not even sure what the question was anymore.
That's quite often how this situation works. Mr. Nichols, would you like to repeat your question very briefly?
Oh, no.
Union busting, I probably also would be subject to a point of order, so perhaps it's best I don't.
You have a minute and a half.
Well, perhaps I should have used the word fuddle-duddle. They're fuddle-duddling the workers here. Do you see this as an exercise in union busting, was my question. And if it doesn't stop here, if the government doesn't act here to come to some sort of aid to you, does it not send a signal to other workers that the government's not going to lift a finger to help the workers of this country?
Écoutez, je pense que les emplois de la GM, c'était des emplois syndiqués. Je pense que le gouvernement conservateur a quand même fait son bout pour sauver 3000 jobs en Ontario au niveau de la GM. Moi, j'ai parlé avec M. Lebel, puis il m'a indiqué que bon, c'est un partenariat avec M. Obama afin de sauver ces travails-là. Je ne sais pas si c'est à cause que Air Canada est une simple compagnie canadienne et que les Américains ne sont pas inclus là-dedans. Mais écoutez, ils l'ont fait pour la GM. Ils ont bloqué la vente de potache. Je pense que le gouvernement conservateur sont capables de travailler pour les syndicats. Je pense qu'ils sont capables de faire leur bout aujourd'hui. Je pense qu'ils vont écouter peut-être qu'est-ce qu'on dit et qu'ils vont peut-être remédier à la situation de présenter ce rapport-là en Chambre des communes.